is a perfect storm of craziness for detailers. And I have a prediction. Burning through and cutting through clear coat is going to increase. It's simply going to increase. These three trends should be kind of scary for professional detailers. You're being set up.
Why would Jason Rose say you're being set up? Look, I know that intro might have seemed a little sensational, a little corny, but if you've burned paint before, you know it's actually like that. It's traumatic. It's really, really scary. You think, God, I'm a loser. I don't know what I'm doing. What is the customer going to think? How much is this going to cost?
Cutting through the clear coat into the base coat. We call it burning paint. It's not really burning, but you're cutting through it.
I recently sat down with Jason Rose to ask him why he thinks burning paint is going to happen more and more. I also actually asked him about a paint gauge, and he says you really need one. He's going to recommend the exact paint gauge you need later in this video, so I hope you stick around for that. But basically, I wanted to know from Jason, what the heck's he talking about? Why is there this trend? He's got 3 trends that he sees. This is something every detailer needs to hear.
Trend number 1 is the paint every new model year from the car factories is getting thinner and thinner. I've measured it the last 5 years, and it's a marked trend. Every model year, the paint's getting thinner and thinner. At some point, they got to stop, but right now it's getting thinner and thinner every year. So that's trend number 1. That alone should be kind of scary for detailers, because now the material that you're working with to polish out paint is actually less and less. So trend number 2 is that our tools, our pads, our compounds are getting more powerful. Last 5 to 10, 15 years, we've had major advancements in the capability of polishing systems. So now we are more efficiently able to rip paint off car than we ever were. So this paint's coming off more efficiently, stronger pads, stronger compounds, stronger tools. So if you combine those 2 trends together, that's kind of scary. We're ripping paint off cars, the paint's getting thinner. Now the third trend is the average consumer of detail services is more knowledgeable because of the internet. They are more aware of what paint is, they are more aware of paint defects, and they are going to detailers requesting paint correction because they know what it is now. You used to have to, years ago, explain what paint correction was. But now there's a lot of consumers that know when they walk in or they call and they say, I want a paint correction package. I want these scratches removed. So if you combine those 3 trends, the consumers are more aware, the paint's getting thinner, our systems are getting stronger, that is a perfect storm of craziness for detailers. And I have a prediction that the incidence of detailers burning through and cutting through clear coat is going to increase. It's simply going to increase because of those 3 converging trends.
And let's get to paint gauges in just a second, but let's have Jason really drive this home. Like, how much does it really cost if you burn paint?
It was very costly. It cost $6,000. It was a brand new Mercedes. I was 4 years into my 12-year detailing business, and it was the very first brand new Mercedes that I got. I was so excited. And unfortunately, because I didn't have my skills that I have now, I tried to do a rotary on that car because I was just learning how to do rotary. Burned through the whole side of that Mercedes. The entire car had to be repainted. The repair for a little burn through usually is about that big of a burn through, usually inch and a half. And depending on where that is on the car, usually on an edge or a body line, that repair could have a cost in the hundreds or thousands. So it's not a little ouch, it could be a big ouch, and thousands of dollars based on whatever that car is and whatever that customer is. So you want to prevent this, obviously.
So let's talk about what you can do to prevent this. A paint gauge. They seem overrated. They seem so gimmicky. Someone gets into polishing. Here, use a paint gauge. You don't have the eye for it. So do you really need a paint gauge?
Do we need a paint gauge? I would suggest strongly that's one of your pieces of equipment that you need to have. And the value in it is a go or no-go decision. So you're going to measure the paint thickness before you do some aggressive procedure on a car and understand how much paint you have, and then make that decision. I'm either going to go through with this paint correction process, or I'm going to stop. I'm going to call the customer and say, sorry, you don't have enough material. I know you ordered my high-end, full paint correction, but you don't have enough material. So that's the value of a paint thickness gauge. I'm not aligned with any particular brand or a product, but what I have done is gone full circle and spent all the thousands of dollars to buy the expensive stuff. And I tend to go back in our academy in Denver, Rupes Academy. We use a paint gauge that's around $200. So it measures on ferrous metal and aluminum, and it does that automatically. You don't have to switch it. It's an X-Tech CG204 is the part number, but that's a pretty basic one that I think is affordable by many detailers, so you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to get a high-end paint gauge.
And here's where I'm willing to admit that I thought I knew what I was doing, and I didn't. I thought if you saw the texture, the orange peel on paint, it meant you had a lot of clear coat to work with. I asked Jason about this. I said, surely a trained eye, a hawk eye, doesn't need a paint gauge. And he said, Nick, you're an idiot. Use a paint gauge.
Texture is the waviness or roughness on the paint surface, but you can have texture if you have 3 mils of thickness, and you can have texture if you have 15 mils of thickness. So that waviness is just all about what's on the top surface of the clear coat. And the reality is that most cars have that texture on it. So you can't look at paint and understand how thick the paint is. There's no visual way to look at paint and understand thickness. You need a device.
Really?
Yeah.
By the way, what the heck am I tracking? Microns, mils, all the numbers? Do you have to put the settings in? I don't even know what I'm doing.
Microns, that's a unit of measure, just as mils is. Now mils is a 1,000th of an inch, and that's the empirical measurement that we use in America. And then Europe and Asia use microns. So for microns, right around that 70 to 100 micron range, that's where you really want to, that's your no-go decision. You're going to say, no, we're not going to do something aggressive. Now millage, you're going to be at 3 mils or less. If you're measuring 3 mils or less, then that is the decision to say, no, we're not going to get aggressive. You might want to do a light polish with a foam pad, or you might spread wax, but certainly no sanding, no aggressive compounding, because you don't have enough material.
Another really good reason to buy a paint gauge, he says, especially when you're starting out, you can use it before and after each step, so you can really measure how much clear coat you're taking off after the compound step, for example.
To do that kind of a finite measurement between steps with a paint gauge, it's a good idea as you're learning, especially to do paint correction. So as you're learning what capabilities certain pad and compound combos have, and you're learning procedures, it's a great idea to measure before and after so that you can kind of get a feel for how much material you're actually removing. But once you learn and once you have a good sense of that, I don't think that you need to measure paint thickness between every step that you do on a procedure. I think its value is on your learning curve. As you're learning how to do paint correction, the paint gauge can help you understand what you're doing every step of the way. But then after you learn that, I don't think you need to gauge every single step on every car.